All right, well, good afternoon, Mayor.
Good afternoon.
So I'm going to try my best to have roll calls for all our votes, everybody. That's Bill, me, and Peg, because we're supposed to do that. I need approval from the minutes for the past meeting. Can I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Peg, second.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, roll call. Bill Lynch,
Aye.
Peg Coniff,
Aye.
and I will say aye, Dan Rist. Minutes are approved. Mayor, do you have anything beyond the rest of the agenda?
No.
Okay. We have no public here. So we're going to get right into the budget. First thing up is a $3,000 supplement for central purchasing postage budget. Barbara wanted me to mention to everybody that this is necessary. One of the reasons is because people are doing absentee voting or mail-in voting, which is costing her office some postage.
Yes.
Can anybody else enlighten us as to what other things require postage that we don't have money in that budget for? Jen?
When all of this started, we made the decision that many of the direct deposit slips for employees would be mailed to people's addresses on file versus normally they just go in the department head's mailbox at City Hall. So that was an increase in postage as well.
Okay, and we had voting. Okay. Well, this is also an end of year thing again. Peg?
Do we know if this is eligible for COVID reimbursement?
Mayor? Do you have an answer for that, Mayor Nicole?
It's certainly something that we're going to try to capture with that reimbursement. There aren't hard and fast rules of, there's no definite, but, certainly it's a direct result from, and yes, we are going to try our darndest.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I have nothing else. It's obviously something we need. Bill or Peg, do you have anything else?
Nope, thank you.
No, it makes sense.
Take a motion to approve, please.
So moved.
Motion to approve the $3,000 appropriation to be transferred from reserve fund to central purchasing account.
Second.
We have your motion and a second. Do you have any further discussion? If not, roll call vote. Councilor Lynch?
Yes.
Councilor Coniff?
Yes.
Dan Riss says yes, 3-0. Thank you. Moving on. $140,000 from enterprise to pay for getting roots out of the outfall pipe that we already voted to replace. I'm assuming that's it, Greg?
Yeah, we fixed a section of it, and when it came offline, the roots that are in every sewer pipe just exploded trying to chase water to get to the wet parts of it, and it's totally locked up. So looking forward to getting that.
The engineer told us that was going to be inspected, a camera inspection of the entire pipe. Could that happen?
Yep.
Is that how you discovered this?
That'll have. Well, we'll inspect it. We'll inspect the entire pipe when we once they clean it. But we inspected sections, but we weren't able to get through big pieces of it because of the roots. The camera couldn't even get around them.
Now, I'm not a plumber, but if you cut all the roots away, doesn't that leave leaks in the pipes? Or do you have to go and seal the pipes?
No, it shouldn't. It won't lead to it leaking, but we do need to look at getting that lined or otherwise replaced. It's something I need to talk to Dan and Diane about going forward, but that's going to be a high dollar project.
In other words, we may need to replace the pipe where the roots are. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, but I think we can get away with lining it.
Oh, okay. I have no other questions. Councilor Coniff?
Greg, how big of a pipe are we talking about here? Like enormous?
24-inch. It's more the length of it.
The diameter?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's more the length of it that is kind of what makes it so expensive, because it goes from the wastewater treatment plant on Gosselin Drive to where East Street and Route 5 come together. It dumps in the Connecticut River over there.
And so the roots are in the pipe itself?
Yeah, they get into the joints and then they're just looking for water. They're just, so once we turn the pipe, once we had to take it out of service when it broke, and once the water wasn't right there for the roots to get, they just go after it.
Okay.
We see it a lot with like vacant houses with their sewer laterals too. If a house sits vacant or it's like under renovation for a while, the roots just go to try to get to water.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Counselor Lynch, do you have anything?
Yeah, the only other thing would be, so where did we stop this investigation or wherever the cameras, you know, are we going to get further down the line and have another problem that exists further on that we're going to end up paying for? And is it, I don't know, like, is this going to open up Pandora's box once we keep going?
I don't think so. I think once we get it cut and cleaned out, we've got some different mowing equipment I can get in there now that we bought for the mini excavator. So I think we're going to be able to keep a better eye on it and maintain it in a way that it hasn't been in the past. So I don't think I don't foresee any other problems with it. I mean, one just plain fact is this stuff is just getting older and older. And we're, you know, relying on it, you know, past, not that this isn't past its usable life yet, but it's not going to be getting any better, you know.
Does this clean the roots all the way back to the water treatment plant, or do you have to keep going until you find more? I mean, what is 140 paying for roots all the way back?
Yeah, the whole line.
Okay. Any other counselors have questions on the 140,000? Raise your hand. JP, you're not on video, by the way, so I don't know if you're raising your hand. Seeing none, I'll take a motion to approve. Well, let me ask if the mayor or any of the Val or Jen or anybody wants to say anything about this appropriation.
Councilor Risk, I did have a question.
Okay.
Hi, Mr. Nodelman. This is JP
Yep.
Kwasinski.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Hey, just a quick question. I know we did a study surveying the entire city water and sewer systems, and there were video cameras, I understand, that went through the entire system to survey it. I thought it was a full, like a census, not really a survey of only pieces, but a full analysis. Did this problem raise its head at all during that process? That's question number one. Question number two is, are there other areas of the city that might have shown up the same type of issues?
Well,
that is roots in the system.
Well, there's roots all over the sewer system. I mean, every sewer system in the country's got roots in it, and we do some treatment with a company called Duke's Root Control, and especially in the areas where they're really bad, like off of Main Street, like Bright Knight, McKinley Avenue over there. There's a lot of old trees, and it's old sewer there too, and we have a lot of root trouble. But the IWRMP, it did not inspect every sewer line in town. That's for sure. There was a lot of camera work that was done and a lot of looking at inflow and infiltration, but not every line. And it's hard for me to say. Like, I wasn't here when some of that work was done. I was here when some of it was, but Ty and Bond did have some language in the IWRMP regarding updating and renovating, I'll call it, the wastewater treatment plant Connecticut River outfall pipe. And without the plan right in front of me, I'm not exactly sure where that fell in it, but it was something that it's talked about in there.
Thank you. I was just kind of looking forward and wondering if there was something that might be over the horizon with regard to this type of problem. Appreciate.
No, I think if we get this thing cleaned out, and then I want to get some numbers, budget numbers at least for slip lining it, and see what it's going to take to do that. But if we do that with these cured in place liners that they can put in now, it'll last for a long time.
JP, can you put your video on? So if you want to raise your hand, I can see it.
Can't right now. I'm sorry.
All right. If you hit participants, you can use your hand up, and I see that Mayor LaChapelle has her hand up. What's up?
I just wanted to, and I think Greg answered it, but along the plans and even Councilor Kwasinski's question, there are many routes in the system, and that is, I've learned, common throughout all sewer systems. But this is a great example of deferred maintenance and catching it when we had to in an emergency, but then adding the telescoping of that pipe and the outfall when we had the chance to do preventative work. And I think that the DPW team, which started some time ago with this project and then it got bigger, you know, did a really great job catching it and saying, hey, we can take this a couple of steps further and see what preventative work we can do while we're in that area.
Okay, Val or Jen, how much is left in enterprise retained earnings after this is approved? Do we have a figure? Val?
$1,208,678.
Okay, thank you. That's what I'd like to know. Anybody else? Counselors, Mayor, are you done? Should I lower your hand?
Oh yeah, sorry, lower my hand.
Okay.
Yep.
Anybody else? Counselor Gomez, Counselor Peak. Nice to have you guys all here. Okay, then I'll take a
It's the
motion.
budget.
I have no other questions, and obviously we need to do this. Somebody want to make a motion?
Motion to recommend the appropriation for $140,000 from enterprise retained earnings to Connecticut outfall root cutting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have further discussion? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call. Counselor Lynch.
Yes.
Counselor Coniff.
Aye.
Counselor Riss says aye, 3-0. Thank you. Moving on.
Councilor Rist, I apologize. As any meeting that we would have on site, for our minutes, it's important to identify who is present, and there is someone here under the name of owner, and I'm just wondering if they would mind going off mute and letting us know who they are.
Okay.
Owner?
Can you tell us who you are, Mr. Owner?
I don't want to.
Go ahead. I think you're off mute.
Can you say who you are, Mr. Owner? Whoever, Miss
It's Joy Winnie.
Oh, hi, Joy.
Oh, okay. Hi, Joy.
Hi.
Okay, we know Joy. Paul St. Pierre just joined us on audio. And you know everybody else, Councilor Lynch, for the minutes. Okay. Moving on to the budget. The way the budget's going to work, this budget hearings, is I will bring up the budget in a shared document. After I ask my questions on whatever part of the budget we're on, that page, before I move on, obviously, I will ask Councilors Lynch and Councilors Coniff if they have questions. When they're done, Councilor Coniff, being a co-host, can see all the other councilors, and we will allow questions from the councilors or statements from Val or Jen. I cannot allow the public to speak at this time. This is just certainly allowed to watch. So we'll move on. The first part of the budget. Tonight we're working on Public Works. Before I start on these budget items, I wanted to say that the mayor, if you wanted to make a comment, I'm concerned about the revenue and whether or not it's conservative enough. And you mentioned to me how you went about that. It is, in my view, something that will be with us for a while. And I'm wondering, what is, if you could state publicly, what is your plan? Should we have revenue shortfalls once the legislature decides on what they're doing?
Yeah, my plan was to go forward with the budget before you now, with the anticipation of revenue being unknown. And I want to, Chair, if you would allow in 2 seconds, to allow the auditor to speak to this, because she really worked very hard on the revenue and trying to find a balance of and use past years. But the idea would be is to go forward with a bare bones budget, level funded, except for the additional interest, to keep services at a full complement right now. Hiring, put a freeze on hiring unless public safety, as well as giving you the council a monthly report that examines year-to-date spending as well as revenues through the summer, and then reconvene finance hearings with on the pleasure of City Council President to take a look at the budget. And hopefully by then we'll have an idea of what the state is going to do. But I think it's, one, I have no problem saying that revenue will be adjusted, and overall that trend will be down. I'm also concerned about reimbursement on FEMA and MEMA monies and CARE Act money. We have a good amount that we can reimburse, but right now we're spending out of our line items, not deficit, and we need that money to come back in to meet, just cash flow. And then around that also is we'll have to look at expenses in the fall. I mean, we'll look every month with, report out of our accounting systems. But we need to pay attention to those reports and honestly get ready in the fall to make some hard decisions. I would rather keep public services. They are tight now, and I want to keep them where they are, and as long as we possibly can, to one, save jobs that are directly related to public accountability on dollars and service, as well as access to the government, and make harder decisions if needed in the fall when we have a complete or more complete fiscal picture. I would also just use a little bit of a crystal ball, and I see the shortest amount of time that COVID-19 affects Easthampton's budget on both revenue and expenditures will be starting in 2021 and will go through 2026 budget year, as far as recovery and understanding what a new normal is and a baseline for our economic position. And Val, could you just, to go back to present day, could you just walk through how your process around revenues and where you pinned it with so many unknowns?
Can we be general? I just want to say, because we are going to discuss the revenue in detail on the 21st.
Mm-hmm.
So general statement about your philosophy toward revenue, Val.
Okay. Well, first of all, generally we use the state's first or second round of estimates anyway. Normally, we don't get our final numbers until the fall when they give us the final cherry sheet estimate. So we're in this situation every year. However, this year is a lot worse because of the COVID situation. I took a look back at 2009 and compared the tax recap budget to what we actually got when the state did the 9C cuts, and it was about 3% less than the recap numbers. And then I took 2018, 2019, and took an average of the 2 years, and it fell at about the same 3% less than what the cherry sheet estimates are that we received from the state. So basically, I reduced the state money by about 3%, except for the line items that are legislated, like the vet reimbursement is 1 year in arrears, and it's the actual reimbursement of what we paid out. And there's a couple of line items like that. So basically, that's what I did with the state estimates. The local receipts, I pretty much estimated about what we've received so far in March for next year, except for motor vehicle, which is at usually the end of the year, and real estate is what we bill. So it's very, very conservative. And if in the fall we need to supplement in any way we can, when we find out what the state's going to do and more of what the situation is with the COVID. But it's extremely conservative.
Okay, thank you. We're going to get into the Department of Public Works, but Councilor Coniff and Councilor Lynch, do you have any questions of the mayor regarding what was just said by Val or the mayor?
I
No.
do not, no.
No.
Okay, Bill. All right, I'm going to move into the budget, and I'm going to start with Board of Public Works. I see you can all see the shared screen, I hope. I don't have everybody at all, Councilor Coniff, so are you able to still
everybody.
see people?
I can see everybody.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is go over the narration, and what I want to do first, Greg, is have you make a statement about the budget, how you feel about it in general, and if there's any areas of concern, you can bring them up, but we are going to go through line by line.
Sure.
Right now, I'm at organizational overview. I don't want to spend a lot of time on the narration unless there's something you want to point out.
No, I think, you know, given the times of uncertain time we're in with the, if we can keep what we've operated with in FY20 here, close to that for 21, I think we'll be all right.
Okay. I'm going to go to positions here. You see it on your screen. I noticed the DPW director is 0.875. Is that because enterprise pays the rest of the FTE? I'm just curious what that means.
Jen has a question.
Or an answer?
Yeah.
Perhaps an answer, yes.
An answer. So the 0.875 is based on full-time is 40 hours a week. But because in Easthampton, a lot of our schedules, you know, full-time is 35 hours a week or 34 hours a week. So it's just based on
35 hours a week.
Right. Yes. And to just kind of throw in here, the 2021 FTEs or projected FTEs have not been updated, obviously, as you can see by looking at this. So, but there are only 2, I think, departments that added positions. So we can speak to those when we go through them.
Okay. Anybody else have questions on positions? Councilor Coniff, if you see a hand raised.
I do not.
Okay, I'm just going to go slowly here. Accomplishments, engineering division, etc. Does anybody have questions about this narration as I go through it? Please, Councilor Coniff will call on you. I'm going slow.
I have a question, actually.
What part of the where do you want me?
I'm sorry, what?
Where do you want me to be on this?
So is this narrative, is it, and I'm sure, I apologize, I haven't read it. So is it a recap of 2020 and then a pro forma for 2021, a go forward, what your expectations are of 2021, Greg?
I have the goals right up here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, dirt. All right. I'm good. Sorry.
So never mind.
Yeah, never mind.
So the goals are there. Obviously, we hope we can do them. This narration is primarily for the public. We all know what the DPW does, at least the counselors do, I hope. I'm going to go right into the budget unless anybody else has a question.
I don't see any.
Okay, administration. When you see a highlight, it's me asking a question, and I'll start. Full-time regular and supervisory is down a little. Is this because of a new director, new FTE for the director? Because I thought we had supervisory raises. I just was curious about why those are down from the request. But they are up a lot from the 2020 budget. So can Greg or the mayor, who can answer that? Nobody?
I can. I'm just trying to bring up the, yeah, I don't know if Greg wants to start, but I'm bringing up the personnel spreadsheet that I have.
I don't have an answer for that.
So the full-time regular was at 82 in 2020. Looks like 88 was requested and they settled at 87. I'm sure that's because it's going to be a level funded budget.
Looks like
So I
Mayor,
think the question is, where did that $5,000, what is that aligned to? Is it raises? Is it?
the mayor has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor. You can just jump in, Mayor. You don't have to stand on formality.
So yes, if the Collins Center report included DPW as part of the DPW rank and file union, as well as the supervisor, but the DPW director at the current time, that position is pay plan. So when the pay plan review happened, it also captured the salary of the director. So what you're seeing as far as requested versus recommend is a honing of what the salary would be under the Collins Center report, which was expected. I would also, just for the rest of this conversation, first of all, commend Greg Nuttleman for hopping on the call as an interim director, but also this budget was put together very carefully by our past director with the help of Jen, our treasurer. So I think that, you know, I don't want to speak for Greg, but I will just remind folks that operationally, he's got a really good understanding of the budget, but the budget was created and honed by former director and current treasurer going forward. So I probably should have said that at the beginning. Apologies.
Okay. Councilor Coniff or Councilor Lynch, do you have any questions on Public Works admin? Trying to make the screen bigger. Can everybody read this okay on this?
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. No questions? Any
No, I don't have any questions. And that was one of my questions was, you know, the total went from 169.4 to 181.8. And if that is a reflection of, as you indicated, Mayor, that would probably account for that difference. But we'll go with that for now. Let's put it that way.
Councilor Lynch, anything?
No, I mean, I looked at previous years too, and we were well over 200,000 for this area. So, you know, I think it's right in line where we've had it for the last couple of years. Taking away the increases, obviously, that we went through last year.
All right, moving on. Fuel, I see no nothing unusual there. Does Councilor Lynch, Councilor Coniff, do you have anything on fuel or other councilors? No?
Nope.
No.
All right, engineering, I've highlighted that. We went from 141 to 148. Is that also a Collins report issue, Mayor?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the same thing. All right, that explains that. Any questions on engineering from Councilor Coniff?
No.
Councilor Lynch?
Yes. Under education and training, 2019 actual was $200.
Oh yeah, it's to 1,500. Oh.
Yeah, it went up to 1,500. So in previous years, we've only used about $150 to 200. So could anybody elaborate what the 1,500 is on that?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just to remind you all, last year, the 2020 budget, personnel or human resources was in charge of office supplies and education and training. So pretty much every department is going to look like they had $0 in education and training last year, and then a large bump this year. This 1,500, and I'm gonna defer to Greg on this to just verify, but I'm pretty sure that the reason that we put it to 1,500 was that it includes some of the licensing that the employees need to get. You know, like they have to keep up on their their licenses and all that. And I want to say that that's what Michelle had told me. Greg, does that make sense?
Yeah, Dan and Diane, even myself as as a licensed public water system operator, we have to maintain a certain number of continuing education hours every year or every renewal period for the license. Mm-hmm. So there's some expense involved in that. The classes just they're not too inexpensive.
Right. And you will see in some of the other departments that there's a separate line item that's like CDL and professional licenses and stuff like that. But I think that in engineering, we kept it like this because it's mainly like licenses associated with continuing education.
Does that answer your question, Councilor Lynch?
Understand. I get everything shifted last year and now it's shifting back, which is just a layer of confusion for everybody, which I understand it's not anybody's fault here. But the concern I still have is that in previous years, it was again, $150, $200, and now we're looking for $1,500. Why? I'm trying to see where the remaining balance is of that increase. Like, why didn't we just ask for even $500 or whatever?
If I could respond to that.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we now have 2 engineers, and the credentialing under state and federal requirements has gone up. Additionally, we have more need for professional development in this department because of the licenses before, especially in water and sewer, of how to keep up those licenses and next levels, that we needed to make an investment in this. And that has changed and just gotten more expensive over the years. There are more and more certifications required, but more importantly, there are webinars and professional development opportunities that need to be taken advantage of, so our crew can keep current, but also get next level certifications.
Okay. Any other counselors have questions on engineering?
I do.
Councilor Lynch, okay.
Yep. So tools and supplies. Previous years it was $21, $200, and $421, and now we're looking for $1,200. Why would we need to almost triple that line?
With the number of public construction projects in the city and software updates, we've needed to update and also expand tools and supplies, because we now have 2 engineers that will be on different sites. So the use of, say, software on one iPad can't be used at both sites. There are a lot of times where they need to be separated. Diane will be at 1 Ferry Street. Dan will be at the school project with Route 110, with what we're seeing on the Admiral Street project, as well as other infrastructure projects. The engineers work very little together. And have tools that they use in the field and need to have those access as things come up.
Thank you. I know that was in my notes for last year, that we needed to buy softwares and computers for the second engineer. Do we need to continue buying new equipment every year?
Absolutely, because new equipment is needed given updated technology. The $1,200, you're looking at software, and my guess is a used iPad to put that together for the second engineer. Last year, it was her actual physical office, as well as like a computer or laptop that's her primary, and printer. But now, again, we have several more public construction projects that really require mobile tools. And we want to make sure that our software is updated and that we can easily get documents from the state as well as from private contractors that will interface with the software version that we have.
Does that answer your question, Councilor Lynch?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, moving on. Next page, highway. Oh, they learned how to draw in red.
Hmm.
I assume this is also salary issues in highway that might be Collins, but they went from 381 to 398. I'm just curious if that's also the same thing, Mayor, or Greg, if anybody wants to answer that.
That's basically the pay adjustment from the Collins Center. There are a couple of positions, but also we are assuming in 2021, the Collins Center, what it doesn't include is the current negotiations going on with the DPW rank and file union. But these were longevity, they were, you know, increases that were slight adjustments.
So can you tell me, Greg, how many people the salary represents?
The highway department is 8.
Now, that doesn't include supervisors. That's 8 rank and file? Or is it?
No, that would include Jim. The Jim salary would be in there too.
Okay, good. The other question I had on this particular line was bituminous concrete. You asked for 100, it went down to 87.5, which is very close to last year's budget, almost level funded. I'm curious why you thought you needed that, Greg. Obviously, the mayor had to make a cut there. What does bituminous concrete do, and why did you put it in 100?
It's asphalt, hot mix asphalt.
Okay.
For
I don't like the way they put concrete there. Too bad it
Yeah.
didn't say bituminous asphalt. That would help me.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, it's the technical name for it, I guess. But
So less asphalt. Okay.
Yep.
Councilor Coniff on this highway budget.
No questions.
Councilor Lynch.
Yep. Rentals. So previous years, we've been hovering around 7,000, 3,000. We've budgeted 10,000. We're looking for 20,000 and settled at 12.5. Just kind of wondering where we see rentals and what we would need on that.
well, we've in the past, highway would have to rent a like when our roller would go down, we would need to rent one. Once in a while, we need to rent a elevated a man lift for maintenance on either buildings or even on the water tanks. I rent one usually once a year, and just some specialized equipment that we don't necessarily need to own, but it's financially more beneficial for us to just rent it for the time that we need it rather than own and maintain it.
Okay. Just curious, looking at the previous years, it doesn't look like we ever even hit the 10,000 mark. Do you see the fact that, or do you see the need of 12,005? Just curious.
Yeah, Joe would have put that kind of together with Jim.
Yep.
And how often they're renting equipment over there. I'm not 100% sure, but I can look into that and get back to you.
Yeah, I mean, just looking back, 6,000, 7,000, 3,000. That we're nowhere even near the 10,000 mark, and we're looking for originally.
I know one thing we're looking to get dealt with is we have an enormous pile of spoils down at the wastewater treatment plant that we need to get screened to make it into usable fill. So I'm not positive, but I'm thinking that if Joe put that in there, that was probably to have some money there to rent a screener for a week or two so that we can keep recycle that material so we can use it, so that we're not buying backfill for when we have projects.
Can you just email the council on the answer to rentals under highway at some point?
Yes.
Thank you. Phil, do you have other things?
Yep, gas, lube, and oil. We usually budget about 3,000 every year. I know currently it's going down. It's probably going to go back up. 4,000 was what was asked and what was given. Is that just off of the actuals for 2019? I'm assuming it was. And I know that was Joe, but previous years, it barely even touched 3,000, less than 2,000, 2,000, you know, in that ballpark. So just wanted to touch base. What is that? That's for all your vehicles and everything you need there anyways, right?
Yeah, for the highway division, yes.
Sorry.
I would assume that $3,000 figure for the 2020 budget is probably already been expended. Do we know that, Val? Do we have any? Can you find out if that?
I have
Are you?
as of today, hang on, highway gas, year-to-date actual expended, $1,800.
That's all? Okay.
Yep. Well, yeah, but don't forget, come the nicer weather, that's when a lot of, you know, the repairs and all that stuff, I think that's when they're gonna use the bulk of their money.
Oh,
You
so
know,
July
probably
1st, right, okay.
fall and
But
spring,
also, the cost of gasoline is way down now, so, okay.
True.
Also, Jen, is that year-to-date, like from January to now, or year-to-date from last July to now? What year are we talking to date?
That is fiscal year to date.
Okay, thank you.
Bill, do you have any others on highway?
Yep. Vehicle equipment repair. So 2019, the actual was 16,000. I'm not sure if we can elaborate on that, but previous years it was only about 7,000. We budgeted 12 last year. Are we looking to go up to 15 just to be closer to that? What happened in 19, if anybody remembers or recalls why, you know, it kind of more than doubled on that for the actual. I'm not sure if anybody has that information available at this point, but
Well,
we need 15 again.
sorry. I will say that as of today, I pulled this report this morning with the year to dates, and year to date for 2020 is repairs to vehicles, almost $18,000.
In highway? Just
Mhm.
highway? And they're only the highway vehicles that's accounting for?
I would assume so. I mean, I don't know that 100% without looking into the account, but I would assume, I wouldn't see any reason we would put anything else in there.
Well, I know there's motor repair for a lot of vehicles, like
Right.
vehicles, whatever. But this is only accounting for highway vehicles, correct, Greg? Is that correct?
Yeah, vehicles in the highway division. And just to add, we did have to make some pretty substantial repairs to the sweeper. So that is probably what you're seeing as the increase there. I know we had quite some pretty serious expenses with that thing, the street sweeper.
And
If I could also jump in here before we move from the point.
Good.
So you're also seeing the amounts in the gas, lube, and oil, as well as the repair, because I have left open and not posted for a mechanic. So our mechanic, our head mechanic retired. Our existing mechanic was promoted to that position. I have not filled that mechanic position until we know more about our cash flow. I do not plan to fill that position. As a result, there will be some expenses in this budget that will creep up, but candidly, those expenses creeping up is much less than hiring a mechanic with benefits.
Where is that seen in the budget? Is that mechanic seen, is that later on in another area that we see that reduction?
Yeah, it's under motor repair.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Anybody else on highway? Other counselors?
Nope.
I did have a quick question about the repairs to the street sweeper. If I recall, I thought the street sweeper was less than 10 years old, something relatively new. And it sounds like something catastrophic might have happened. Maybe you could help flesh that out a little bit?
Yeah, I can get you those answers, but I don't know exactly what happened with it, but I know that it was down and it was apart for a while over there, and I can look into it and let you know.
So,
Thank you. And as we go through the budget, Dan, I would really appreciate if we would get a report on the 5210 5010 account. That's the education.
yeah, I don't want to look at numbers, JP. What account is it?
That's the report, a report of expenses for the education and training. I'm really very confused when it comes to what was done one year, the next year. Now we're back to the way it was done before. So I'm going to call for a report so that we could look at that a little closer. What the actual expenses were and for whom the money was spent and what type of training was achieved during that.
So I don't know.
May I make a comment on that?
Okay.
So the idea of it going back and forth and all around one, I would just put this committee and council on notice that the money in education and training throughout the departments has been without guidance or policy for many years. Two, the attempt last year was to actually look at expenses, and what we lost there as we consolidated the expenses, and I will say we as was to really keep those dollars down. As a result, the accountability in the departments, especially as it relates to succession, was quite poor because the funding could not be gotten fast enough out of that system as well. There wasn't a consistent expectation that one department would not spend what another's might need if a certification or training opportunity changed. So overall, with each department head, and you can see how we're just presenting the budget sections to you now, the department heads, regardless of the fiscal conditions that we're operating now, are really going to be held to their department budgets and line by my office and the treasurers and certainly the finance and the city council as always. But I also have to give them tools to build up their team in a time where we're fighting for every municipal employee to keep even basic services going. And that was the reasoning, not to, say that, any comment about the asking of the detail, but just to provide some of the overall philosophy and context of why it went back.
So it sounded like to me that you tried for a little more efficiency, maybe saving some money last year's budget, and you realized that was too difficult to process and you needed more accountability per department. So you transferred all of that education and training budget in all the departments back to the departments where we had it in previous years. I think Councilor Kwasinski would like at least an explanation of fiscally why this is up to 1,500, but I don't know if you want to write a little email to that effect later on.
Well, what I was thinking was a report, just a run report.
Right.
Val, is there certain reports for that account that you can just print out, not on paper, but send us an email detailing those expenses?
For all departments, JP, I would think that would be more practical.
Everything for the 5410.
Okay.
I'm sorry, 5314.
Okay. Is that possible, Val?
I'll check into it. I know we tried to make notes on the invoices as to what departments it was for at the time the invoices were paid. But as far as anything in the system giving numbers, I don't know that it was even tracked. And it may mean we have to go through every single invoice and figure out what each one was for.
Well, I wouldn't be asking for every single invoice at this time, but looking to just try to get a sense of it. I think it is our fiscal responsibility to try to do that.
Right. I'll check and see what we can do.
Thank you, Val. Any other counselors on highway? I'd like to move on. Okay, moving on. Snow emergency is as it always is. I have no questions on it. Do any counselors have questions, Peg or Bill?
No.
Counselors? That's just a usual amount. And just to remind everybody, we can't make this higher because if we do, we can't deficit it. We'd have to go back to that higher figure. So we want to keep it at the lower figure in hopes it doesn't snow a lot. I had no questions on streetlights. Does anybody have questions on streetlights?
Only in the sense of what phenomena is going on that would lower our light heat power number.
That's true. I just saw that, 68,000. Who can, is that you, Greg? Can you tell us why are we turning off some streetlights? I hope not.
No, no, we're definitely not turning any off. That's another one. I'm sorry. I'll have to look into that too.
All right, you're taking notes as to what we need, so if you could.
Yes.
So I can answer that question.
Okay.
Okay.
In the past, the past year, 20 and 20, I'm sorry, in 19, and then really in 2020, we got a better census of lights that needed repair, and we fixed them. So the anticipation is in 2021, there won't be as many to fix.
Oh, okay. That's a good answer. Bill, I saw your.
What happened?
No, I saw that in the previous years. I was just going to make that mention, that comment.
Okay. I'm glad we're fixing them. So, Greg, I don't know if you need to write anything. Mayor,
Okay.
the answer to that one.
Yep.
I see the salary, and this is the 1 FTE. We went to 59. Is that one person
Yes,
that's up there? So that's
actually, I believe so. Jen?
Yes, this is the motor repair department, excuse me, that we were just talking about, where the mayor hasn't authorized the second position to be filled. So this budget is only for the current position that is filled and has been it's been most of this year, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I see that tools is, well, it was budgeted at 26. Now it's down to 1,000. Is that because one less employee, Mayor or Greg?
I can actually answer that one too, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Some of the, when Joe left and Greg was made interim, I resent the budgets to Greg, the supervisors, and also to Michelle. And so some of the tweaking, the differences between the original request and the recommends could be based on her feedback, or I actually can pull up right here what it is. And some of it was, there were some cuts made, tools and supplies. That was actually one that I made based on the expenses that I saw over the past few years. When everybody gave me their original budgets, it was a little heavy. So I went through and tried to kind of assess where people had some room to cut back before, we started hacking at really important line items. And that was one that there was not, there wasn't a need for a specific tool that was making it, more expensive. So it was an area that we were able to just cut back based on what had been spent.
That's all my questions. Councilor Coniff on motor repair?
No.
Councilor Lynch on motor repair?
No, I'm okay there.
Any other councilors?
He had a question on another, back to streetlights, but I can wait until you finish this
No,
section
that's
if you
fine.
like.
If you have nothing on motor repair?
No.
All right, streetlights, go ahead.
Okay, if you could turn back to that for a second.
Don't you see it?
Yeah. I'm looking at what I think is a 36% increase from 19 actual 50,000 and change to 68,000. So that shows me, unless I'm reading it wrong, an increase, significant increase in energy costs.
I think she mentioned that it was repair. The original budget in 20.
Wouldn't the repairs come in the next line in the miscellaneous professional and technical services account, and that be billed for energy?
I'm not sure, but she did it. Mayor, can you respond to Councilor Kozinski, please?
Well, first of all, as we're repairing the streetlights, they're becoming more efficient. and getting updated equipment. As well, the cost of lighting and through Eversource has gone up. But again, the lights themselves are more efficient. So we're seeing a decrease in our energy cost, as well as the miscellaneous professional and tech services. We're looking at any extra, like actually probably the repair up in District 1, JP, that took forever to get the utility, that everything coordinated, and expenses that are attached to that. I will defer to Jen to clarify what each bucket that it actually covers.
Jen, go ahead.
Okay. Before I get to which bucket is which, the energy for light, heat, and power, that first line item that we're looking at, which is, I believe, what Councilor Kwasinski is referring to, the reason that it's an increase over the actual is because, correct me if I'm wrong, Greg or Mayor, but I believe that there was an additional street light installed. We put a new street light in at, I'd have to ask Michelle where it was, but I'm pretty sure that it was put in during the course of this year, and they're not really sure what it's going to require in terms of
Energy.
yeah, and also the like the flashing lights for when people are crossing, something about those were updated as well. But I can get more information as to, you know, the details of what goes into that account. But I do know that there was something new, you know, and they weren't sure exactly what it was gonna end up being.
I think it's Cottage Street, Jen.
Okay.
Where we had the upgraded crossings put in there with the pedestrian lights.
Yep.
So.
Oh, there you go.
And the blinking stop signs at South and Main.
Mhm.
All of these things, where it says streetlights, it includes walk signs and maybe the signs where we go by a school, because I know last year we repaired those where they flash, go to 20 miles per hour. All of those are under streetlights, correct, Greg?
I believe so.
Okay. Does that help you, JP?
I just would like to be able to understand whether it's like the electric bill we all get in the mail as citizens to pay our electric bills, or whether it's a capital cost for an item like a stop sign, solar streetlight, which what I understand cost about $5,000 or more. That's a hard capital expense versus an every month utility expense. So I'm reading this and thinking, this is a utility expense that's going up 36%. And I hope the heck that it's not the cost of energy for the streetlights that you're talking about, the new ones.
Well, it's actually lower than last year's budget. It's 68. Last year was 77.
Can I ask a question, please?
But it's going from 50 to 68.
Well, that's in 2 years. Councilor Coniff?
Jen, do you have the year-to-date actual for that account line 5211?
I do, but it's only at 40,000. So my comment on that would be, the thing is I'm sure obviously that there's recurring billing billed to this account, but maybe I could ask Val, I don't know if you would be able to run a report of that account to see what gets posted there. Like, I know JP's wondering if it's electric and solar and all that, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can run a detail.
Okay.
If I could just clarify fiscal policy.
Go ahead.
So a capital expense in our budget is anything under $25,000. So if there was a $5 expense in streetlights, like to put up a pole or whatnot, and it was under 25, we would not categorize it as capital.
Okay.
And that's across all departments, not just Public Works.
So we can move on. Valerie will give you, Councilor Kwasinski, a run on that account.
Councilor Rist, Councilor Peak has a question.
Councilor Peak.
Yeah, I mean, so just listening to this, it sounds like the source of the confusion, and the source of the confusion for me on this account is really just that the account description, which says energy for light, heat, and power, doesn't sound, I mean, maybe it's just the description, but it doesn't really sound like that's where you'd be putting like the purchase of new street lights. That sounds like that would be something in supplies and materials maybe, or something. And maybe that's just not how it's shaken out. But if that really is just, if that account is just used for purchasing energy, and in 2019 we spent 50,000, then the idea that we're spending 14 or 18,000 more on electricity for what, like for the flashing lights on Cottage Street, that's kind of intense. I mean, I know that electrical prices have in general risen, and if that's what it is, then, you know, so be it. But I get why Councilor Kwasinski is a little confused by this. I'm also kind of curious.
Well, I think, Valerie, when you do get that run, send it to all the councilors, please.
I guess what I'm just really, my big question is there anything in that account that we're spending money on other than what's being described in the account description?
I think
So I would just remind the finance committee and council in general that we do not replace our streetlights, that we have a service that does it and we have to give them a list. So there is not a streetlight employee in the city,
but
that
what
it is
they're
a
at-
service.
That's not just energy, it may be repair in that.
It may be, sure.
So that's
It
what
could be-
Val
it-
will be able to enlighten the council on, is it's repair, it may be
Yeah.
purchasing something under 25,000, it may, and
Yes.
it's also utility costs.
Yes.
I just want to move on. I think that Val will give us an answer. We finished motor repair unless someone has a new question. Peg, you see any questions?
I do not.
Traffic, I have no questions. Councilor Coniff or Councilor Lynch?
No questions.
Councilor Lynch?
Oh, I'm good.
Any other councilors? Recycling. Pretty much level funded. I have no questions. I have no questions on landfill. Do any of the other councilors have questions on either of those accounts? No, hearing none.
Hang on, Councilor Riss.
Mhm.
Can we go back to recycling just real quick? So it looks like we had been putting all the money into trash, town and buildings, and now we're separating it into trash schools, trash, town and town buildings. But that the net slightly higher. But is that what we're doing there? We're breaking it out for schools versus, and by town buildings, do you mean like 50 Payson and 32 or whatever the safety complex is?
Trash services for the schools were free and donated by Duso Trucking. And when they were bought out by another company and we put them under like the same service, I think it's USA Recycling, there's now a cost. So we broke it out for schools.
Okay, but last year we did.
Yeah. I think it started last year at
Yeah.
some point. Val might have that exact answer, but we split that out because schools, the trash and recycling was always free.
It was about July or August last year. Duso sold to USA, and then we lost the free pickup at the school.
Which is why it wasn't budgeted last year for the schools.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else on recycling or landfill? Cemetery, this would be Mr. Mason. Any general comments, Mr. Mason? Are you still there, John? Is he muted, Peg?
It's
Yes.
on mute. There you go. You're up, John. Can you hear us?
All right, cemetery, nothing outrageous here. We actually sharpened the pencil a little bit as this COVID-19 hit and reduced our line item on one account best we could. We're basically bare bones. You can see that our expense lines in cemetery has been pretty much level funded for years upon years, and we continue to do that. Actually took a little bit off of the original request.
Okay, I have no questions on the Brookside Cemetery account. Councilor Coniff or Councilor Lynch?
I'm assuming that the budgeted salaries are pay plan scheduled increases.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Jen.
Bill,
No questions.
any other counselors? Moving on. Department tree. We have a tree we own, I guess, now. George is still working for us.
For the time being,
He's been with us, what, 50 years? How long has George?
seems like it, yes. I would say I'd venture to guess that this would be his last year with the city, but that's just my my own little thoughts. Nothing
So his
formal.
salary is this line where it says tree warden services, that's the part of his salary? Is that money on that line right here?
Yeah. So he gets a little stipend
A little.
for doing the tree warden services for the city, because he'll do a lot like at lunchtime or after work and go look at jobs and projects and things like that, or if a homeowner has a concern. So he gets a little bit extra.
And that's because he's the park foreman, so he can't do it during regular hours?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, he'll try to swing through, but he has a lot going on at the park. But if he has time during the regular day, he'll swing over there as well. But if there's a storm that hits late at night, he'll be out there at 1 o'clock in the morning, clearing paths with DPW and doing things like that as well. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he does that.
Counselor Coniff or Counselor Lynch?
Nope.
No, I'm good.
Any other counselors? Moving on. We are done with Public Works. Now, Finance Committee, because you had questions, I don't intend to vote on this evening. I think I'll do all my votes on the 21st. Is that all right with the Finance Committee?
Yes.
That's fine.
Okay. Moving on to Enterprise. Again, I'm just going to skip over the narration unless anybody has a question. I see that we have done what we could with water, for instance, wastewater. We have a lot of work to do given the Tag and Bond report, but we all know this. Greg, do you want to say anything about Enterprise in general or any division in general?
Well, I understand the budget's going to be tight, and we're going to try to wade through it the best we can. But if we can stay, like I said earlier, if we can stay close to what I had this year, I mean, we have an extremely resilient water system, and there's no doubt in my mind I can keep it running for a while, for the foreseeable future, with what we've got. So
as long as the roots don't go crazy.
Yeah, well, I said water system. The sewer system's a little different, but
Well,
we'll get to it.
sewer's one of the divisions. And it's the first one, so do you have anything, general comment on sewer? Are we gonna be okay, or do we wait for an emergency to happen and then we fix it like we did with the outflow pipe? Or?
Well, I mean, we try to be as proactive as we can. Right now, I've been, it's very difficult right now with the crews staggered and what's going on in the world. But we do tend to operate in a very reactive mode with sewer, and the system is old, and it's a lot of it is very deep. It's buried deep, and it's difficult for us to fix. I don't know if any of you have seen some of the troubles we had on Cherry Street, but that line it's like 13 feet deep. We had to dig it December 20th. It was right before Christmas, freezing cold, and the guys, it was a tough job, and more of those are coming. Especially in the sewer system, because it's just these old clay pipes they're past their, they've been in use longer than anybody would have ever expected them to be, and some of them are
trying to do as much of this in-house, right?
We do what we can, repair wise. Yes, I hardly ever have to go outside to get for repair help. We have a very, very, very capable crew, and it's nothing short of amazing, some of the things that they're able to do sometimes.
So speaking of crew on the sewer line, you're down from 292 to 267. Is someone Is there an FTE open here, Greg or the mayor?
Yeah, actually, I have 3 open in sewer right now.
Oh, that's
Right.
3 positions?
Yeah, so if anybody knows anybody, send them. I gotta get some help over there.
Well, Mayor, are you intending to hire or are you freezing that line?
No, they're enterprise funded positions. So those positions will be filled when we get applicants.
So when you get an applicant, you ask for a supplemental appropriation to pay for it? I mean, if you're gonna, right now you've budgeted 267, which is down
Right.
from 292. So I'm assuming if you have to hire someone, you're gonna have to pay for that somehow. It's not out of this line, it's increasing it, am I right?
Jen?
I can pull up the personnel service sheet for this, but I believe it has to do with people that were in those positions. You know, obviously we start people at a lower salary.
It's entry-level salaries are still listed, so those positions are still listed and being paid for, but at entry-level salaries. Is that correct?
That's what my assumption is. If you bear with me for 1 second, all the departments gave me a personnel service spreadsheet. Sewer.
While you're looking for that, I'm just going to ask my next question of Greg. What is miscellaneous professional services paying? It's 25 last year, now it's 45? Then it was,
Engineering consulting and police details. There was some.
and that's because of all the work that we have going on in the city. That's why
Yes.
we need that increase.
Yep.
Okay.
And another thing in professional services and sewer, like camera inspections, we have to contract that out. And we, you know, the robotic camera is something we'd like to get someday, but we have a contract that costs about $1,300 a day for him to come and do drain and sewer line inspections.
The only other question I had while Jen's still looking is, this went from 1,700 to 15,000 last year, and it's level funded, but I'm curious what masonry supplies are needed that had to jump that over from 19 to 15 in 2020 and 21. Do you know, Greg?
Masonry supplies.
You see here, it's 15,000.
Yeah.
Budget line here. I've highlighted it.
Actually, I can't point to any one thing that would make that go up so much.
Well, if you could research that and get back to us, I'd appreciate it.
Yep.
Jen, did you get to the salary line yet?
I don't have it itemized for enterprise. Michelle only sent me the DPW admin, but she came up with this, so I can just ask her what her detail was on it. My assumption is the entry level hires.
Makes sense now, I understand that.
Mhm.
That's all my questions. Councilor Coniff,
Nope.
Councilor Lynch.
Yes, equipment rental. This department had no budget in 16, 17. And then this was the one that had the brush hog rental for $5,000. And I know we talked about rental equipments and everything else. So let me just fill Greg in on the brush hog. I was told that we needed it one time and that it was not going to be needed in the following years. And then it showed back up in the last year. There's the ability to have one that we can purchase for our skid steer, but I know that it possibly could damage the skid steer, seeing the age of it and everything else. Do we need to continue renting something that we could buy that would really save us money in the long run?
Well, here and there, I mean, depending on some of the easements we need to mow require a brush mower that we don't have. However, last year, we were able to buy one for our mini excavator that goes on the Volvo Mini here at the water department, and we're able to do most of our easement maintenance with that. And then highway also has a new sidearm mower too that's now available. So I can't say we won't need to rent anything, but it should be less rental now that we have those two pieces of equipment.
Okay. So, you know, in years past, the only thing rented for sewer was the brush hog. And there was zero budget previous to that. So that's good to know that we got some equipment that we can utilize. Thank you on that.
Yep.
I had the same question Dan asked already on miscellaneous services. The tires, tubes, and chains. So every year that one kind of goes up. And I understand that that's a kind of a shot in the dark. It usually ends about $1,000. We're budgeting about $2,000. Last year we did $1,000. Previous years the actuals have been around $1,000. Is there any reason we need $2,000 this year? Do you know?
I can't point to any one specific reason. I mean, some of our trucks are getting to the point where they're about 4 to 5 years old and requiring tires. And I think the last time we put a set of tires on a truck, it was like almost $700. I know the sewer department foreman's truck, we had to put tires on last fall. And, you know, the strangest things can happen. Like one day they ran over a railroad spike. Who knows where it came from, but it ruined the backhoe tire, and that's a very expensive tire.
Okay, so we might have new tires.
Yeah.
$100 for one vehicle, that's a lot.
Okay, thank you on that. And then the last one, I don't think we talked about it, was the curb iron casting.
Yep.
Touch base on that one yet?
So what's been happening?
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah, so 2016, we had like $3,000, nothing spent in 17. You know, 18 was you know, we budgeted 10,000 in previous years. Is there nothing spent in 2019? So there's a couple years, it seems like every other year we're not spending anything. So if we follow that pattern, I'm assuming there's something spent in 2020. Do we need the 20,000 budgeted for that?
We do. I mean, what happens is when we do a paving project, my stock of them can get depleted very quickly. I know that tomorrow morning we have to bring five castings over to East Street. And last year we had to supply a lot to Cottage Street and Pleasant Street paving. I don't know if that was, it all kind of blurs together. I don't know if that was last year or not, but when we do these paving projects, my stock of manhole frames and covers and can get depleted very quickly.
Okay.
So that's like putting a new manhole cover on it. Great.
Yeah.
And
yes.
Making it taller so you can, when we always see that.
Yeah.
Right. So that goes up and down. Okay. That's a good, thank you, Bill, for catching that. Do you have anything else, Bill?
No, I'm good.
Peg, you didn't have anything, correct, under sewer? No? Peg, are you there?
Yeah, I was shaking my head, but I realized you can't see it. No.
And I miss you so much. Wastewater. 290 to 320, is this the Collins report? Or no, that's not it. I'm sorry.
Excuse me, Dan. I actually do have a question.
Oh, I didn't. I'm sorry. I should have asked.
Sorry. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. Just it's a constituent question, really. I have I know Greg, you mentioned Cherry Street when you were going through sort of the description of some of the stuff that you had done. I have a correspondence with Tom Malsbury at the BPW saying that there's a plan to do some work on Cherry Street this year. Is that still in the cards?
Yes, we're hoping to. We've got to get that line changed out. And we're definitely hoping to get that out to bid this year if the funds are available.
Great. So this budget right now will secure those funds?
Jen, would you have, or we had that in capital, I believe.
That might, yeah, I was going to say, is that like a off the top of my head, I don't remember if it was one of the capital projects, but if it was over the 25, then it would be.
We did, and,
So-
and you know, now that I'm thinking, we're also looking at that in the, the MVP grant that Diane's
yeah.
working on. So
Yes.
we're
Okay, so
looking to
that's
get-
in a different section of the budget then.
Well, and it may also, Tom, it may also be appropriate at the time because it's a capital project and I don't know if they've budgeted yet for it. So like we had to do the 140 today, so. I
Okay.
don't- In the sewer budget, it's probably going to be capital. If it's in the capital budget, when we get there, Jen or Greg, you can point it out.
Great.
Anything else, Tom?
No, that's all. Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna move on to water, wastewater. I assume the budget change here for salaries is either pay plan increases, collective bargaining, or Collins. Mayor, is that what that is?
Yeah, cost of living, yes,
Cost of living and things, okay.
looked at.
Miscellaneous professional services went from 290 up to 320. What are we paying for here, Greg? This line here?
Electricians, things of that nature, SCADA
Yeah.
professionals, a police detail here or there, but for the most part on that with wastewater is going to be engineering services and specialized tradespeople.
Okay.
Greg, you said SCADA? What is that?
The supervisory controls and data acquisition. It's the automated, the automation that runs the wastewater treatment plant. We have it here at the water department.
Okay. I know finance, I don't know. Thanks, Greg.
Yeah.
And also electrical supplies jumped from 8,100 in 219 up to 25 last year and it's level funded. What is that also for what you just mentioned?
Yeah, just the plant is aging and Carl and the guys are really doing a lot down there to fix it up and keep it running. And as things get older, they require, as everyone knows, everything gets older, it requires more and more maintenance. So.
Okay. And the last thing I have, lab supplies, I'm assuming that jump is because we have to do a lot more testing or have regulations changed. It went from 219 up to 45. And I know I probably asked the same question last year. You know,
Well, I think on the wastewater side, I'd have to check with Carl on more as to why he sees such an increase there. But I know on the water side, when we just, sometimes we don't know what new federal guideline is going to come out that we have to all of a sudden sample for. And some of the sampling that the regulatory agencies will require of us can get extremely expensive.
but it's
and
level funded from year to year, but it jumped from here. And I believe there was some new regulations, but I can't remember. Joe explained it last year, I think so. All right, that's all I have. Councilor Coniff on wastewater.
No, nothing.
Councilor Lynch on wastewater.
Yep. So the lab supplies thing, last year we needed to buy a refrigerator that had regulations and monitors and everything else on it that houses the lab supplies. That was the explanation given to me, and that was about $8,000 to $10,000 when we were reviewing the budget. The previous years, it's only been around hovering $20,000, and then there was additional costs that were incurred on that because of increased supplies, et cetera, et cetera. But it spiked last year because of equipment needed to be purchased for housing the lab chemicals. So if that's not needed anymore because we bought it last year, we should be able to have a reduction there unless there's some other way we can identify where we need that money. So find out for me, but I believe that's what the answer was for that last year. And then travel and meals, really it's only been anywhere from $100 to $300 and $100 in 2019, but now we're going up to $2,100. Is there any reason for that?
I missed that one too, Bill. Greg, do you know?
Not that I can point to. Jen, would you?
Well, I was actually going to say, I think that might have just been that Michelle, she might have incorporated the travel, meals, dues, and membership all into one not realizing,
Zero of
because
them.
there's nothing there. And I do know that, you know, there's, there are organizations that they belong to, you know, that they pay dues for and stuff.
Yeah.
It might be the education and training coming from human resources as well.
They've got that in a separate line item up top, so I don't think so, unless, you know, it could be also with dues and memberships, again, licenses or whatever. I'm not sure if she's consistent with the where she's putting them, so I can talk to her about that and just get a little bit of detail.
All right, so Jen, if you could email us on travel and meals, what you get an answer, and Greg, add the 45,000 lab supplies explanation there to your list, please.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you. Bill, do you have more?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Other counselors? Anybody raising their hand, Peg?
Guys, I just need to jump off. I need to jump onto another call, but thanks for doing this, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Tom.
Bye, Tom.
Anybody else? Moving on. The reserve fund. This is enterprise reserve funds, right? This is the same as usual. Is that what this
Yes.
is? Enterprise reserve? Okay. Water.
Hang on one second. Go
Oh,
back.
all right, going back to which one, Peg?
The reserve fund. What is the difference? Those descriptions are frighteningly similar. What's the difference between the two?
The 4506 is water and the 4462 is sewer.
Thank you,
So
Jen.
maybe, you know, just for us dummies who don't know numbers, maybe we could put sewer reserve fund and water reserve fund in the description next year, Jen?
Sure.
I believe that the account description is actually by the state. I'm not sure that we can change that.
Oh, really?
So,
You can't change the,
well, it's just kind of like taking building ops out of general and putting it into DPW. That's not how the state has it listed out as far as chart of accounts.
Right.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I would defer to Val and Jen on that. But that's what I've learned over 3 years is that.
It was in the budget a couple years ago, separated out.
Yeah, you can
well,
change it.
not with the title, so, okay.
Yeah.
We can be explained every year, I was just curious. Moving on to water. I had the 323 in full-time regular. Is that a Collins report increase, I assume? Yes? Mayor?
Yes.
Okay. I know in other areas that you've had to cut overtime. I'm curious why you level funded overtime here and not try to cut it because you knew we need it in water.
Yeah, I mean, just given the age of the water system and that things that start happening on really Friday at about 4 o'clock through long weekends are apt to happen. I think that I would rather budget for that, and I feel, you know, the experience we've had with the water, but also with all the construction projects, things are being lodged or water, and I'll defer to Greg, things are being lodged in a water system, or folks, like one general contractor said down at 1 Ferry Street, like, we want water to be there because the maps aren't accurate all the time because the system is so old down there. So water, you know, somebody is requesting from the water department to be there while things are happening. Greg, am I kind of on track with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one thing, we're like, a lot of the gate valves in the city are 1920s, 1930s. And when we have to turn them off or operate them to isolate a section of the system for either for work or for upgrades or for any of these multiple projects that we have going on, it can lead to problems very quickly that require a lot of time to get resolved. So it's just the more that we poke and prod and play with this old system, the more we need to take care of it. So.
All right, the next question I have is miscellaneous professional services. That jumped from 65 budgeted last year to 90. Can you explain that one?
Yep. The same police details as part of that, and just needing to bring in specialized people for certain things. As the pumps age here on Hendrick Street, I've contracted with Associated Electromechanics to start a preventative maintenance program on them, and just to take better care of these things. You know, most of the pumps over here are from 1996, so.
Okay.
And we also are required to do a leak detection every 3 years. I'm due for that this year. That's generally right around, you know, $10,000 or so, but things of that nature.
All right, that's all I have for now. Counselor Coniff on water. Peg?
These are kind of silly, but in 2019, we spent $1,600 in postage. And last year we budgeted 7,000 and now we're budgeting 7,000 again. What, pray tell, are these mailings that require all this postage?
I mean, the first thing I would point to is billing, but then also we have to mail out our consumer confidence report every year to each household in town. So there's some pretty substantial expense involved in that bulk mailing.
Is that but I agree with Counselor Coniff. Why did it jump from 1,619 up to 7,000? Is this new regulation or something? Do you
That's
recall
like
why?
a four-fold increase.
I don't remember the explanation from last year. Maybe, Bill, do you have a line explanation from 2019?
So in previous years, it was over $5,000, and I know that they do the, they also, I think it was the, what he was saying, Greg was saying with the
Consumer confidence report.
Yeah, and all that. So previous years, it was over 5,000. It was 6,000. Why 19 was so low, unless it hit another line, I don't know, but that's the one that kind of stands out as the sore thumb.
And that's actual versus budgeted. They budgeted 5. You have those. I don't have that in front of me, Bill. They budgeted 5 in 19.
No, they budgeted 7.
Well,
7's been the standard budget across the line.
Okay.
Peg, you have another one?
No.
Bill?
Yeah, the building equipment and supplies. No, sorry, that one was okay. It jumped up, but it was kind of in line with the history. Pipes and fittings isn't. What I'm looking at is past actuals. I know we continue to do it. What's that?
Go ahead.
Oh, it's never hit $20,000, and in the past 4 or 5 years, and actuals have been 8, you know, and then 17 and 15,000. So, you know, why do we need 30,000 in that one if we're not even touching anywhere near 20,000 when we're buying it?
Greg?
Well, I have a lot of pipe in stock here. I mean, when we order it, we tend to, you know, buy it in bulk. So we're not buying it, you know, constantly. I don't think I've ordered pipe, actual just water pipe in quite some time.
So why do we need $30,000 this year? Or if we, as Council Lynch says, we only spent 20. Years.
Yeah, I'm not like, you know, like we were saying earlier, why Joe has that high, I'm not positive, but I can look into that.
Another thing for your list. Thank you.
Yep.
Bill, continue.
Thank you. Meter parts was a big one, and I know that's on the water meters, and we've made appropriations to improve to the digital ones, so the old ones are kind of phasing out, and I know that there's a cycle going through, but we should see the savings, which we did in 19. It was only $1,400 instead of $15,000. So, you know, can that line, in your opinion, go down a little bit in the fact that we've made appropriations to upgrade water meters?
I'd like to say it could. However, what we're seeing now is that they started the meter replacement program in the early 2000s, and I don't want to get too technical, but the radios that are on some of the initial meters that were installed, that were radio reading meters, are are starting to fail. The batteries only have like a 15 to 20 year lifespan. And so now we're starting to replace some of the ones that, you know, are considered to be newer. So it's just, and modern meters are not, they're not cheap.
Yeah.
I remember you saying that could happen this year, last year, or Joe said it, I'm sorry, not you.
Yeah, but that's what we're starting to see. The initial round of MIU's radios that were installed are starting to just, they're, you know, you can't replace the batteries in them. So we have to replace the whole unit.
I noticed hydrants is up too. I forgot to ask that question. 18 to 25, we have to replace hydrants because they're getting old.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. A lot of the old Smith, this water system, we have a lot of old Smith hydrants. That was a manufacturer, and it's harder and harder to get parts for those now. And we tend to just, every time one fails, we replace it.
I'm sorry to interject. Do you have more, Bill?
Yeah, I mean, that was one of them, you know, so why does it need to be 7,000 more than, you know, previous years budgeted? You know, we budgeted 18 and 18, 19, 20, and now we're jumping up to 25,000 when we didn't even use it in 19. You know, I mean, obviously, Dan already called it out, but I just, I think that, you know, we're tight, adding $7,000 to a line that we never spent it on. And then in-state travel for 500. What would fall under that line, just for my clarity on that? Because then we got the following line with the travels and meals. So in-state travel, wouldn't they just use the company vehicles, I guess?
You know what? It's tolls.
Okay. All right. And then travel and meals would be when they have to go to a different location outside.
Yeah, something if it's a training or.
All right, and then the last one on dues and memberships, which we kind of already talked about on that one and previous ones, and it falls in line with the existing or the previous budget, so that's fine. So I'm good now. Thanks, Dan.
Other counselors have any questions on water? Hearing none. Peg, yes? No?
Nope.
JP?
Nope.
No? Oh, I thought you said JP. That's it on enterprise. Again, we'll vote on this later. You have some explanations to do, the lab supplies, etc. Greg, if you could email us on that.
Absolutely.
Do we need Greg for anything else? I believe he's done. We're going to move on to culture and recreation. Anybody need Greg for anything else?
No, thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Greg.
no problem. Thank you all very much.
Have a good evening, Greg.
You too. If anybody needs anything, feel free to email me or give me a call.
All right, and as soon as you get that stuff, that'd be great. Hopefully it'll answer the questions. I do recommend that on the 21st you join the Zoom, because that's when we're going to vote. And if there is any counselors thinking they'd want to reduce something, you might want to be able to defend your department if that happens to be the case. I'm not anticipating that, but I do want you to be around for the 21st, okay?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. I'll try to get this stuff answered and get back to you all by the end of the week.
All right, and
Thanks, Greg.
library and parks and recreation. I'm surprised that we don't have Rama here and what's her name? Was I at fault in not telling them we were talking library tonight? Mayor?
That, yes.
You're the boss.
Yeah.
So
If we
I think
could,
you left yourself wide open for that one.
I
yeah,
know.
right, Jake? I mean, come on. Sure.
I have other
if
email
we could-
addresses and
Yeah, I can't ignore that. I mean, that was, yeah. But certainly I would like them to present, and if we could, you know, add it to an agenda, you know, in the next set of hearings or whatnot, that would be very appreciated.
then I will not talk about library tonight, and I need the email addresses for, what's her name, Martha?
Rama.
Raymond, well, Raymond's
No,
not.
no, Marge Pendergrass
Marge.
All right.
and Nora Blake, and I will send those to you right now. I'll text them to
And
you.
I'll let them know that this Thursday, we will continue that discussion, and I'll tell Barbara to add it to as old business, the library budget. Okay, I'm sorry, everybody. I failed you again.
We're keeping score, Dan.
Yeah, I know. It's happening. Recreation. John, since the parks are going to be closed until 2021, can we just cut you and everything? I mean, I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding.
Chair.
It's late and I'm losing it. John, you want to say anything about the recreation budget and the serious note?
Chairman Rist,
Yes.
could I just have the treasurer just make some comments around preparing this budget with John and how and what that process looked like?
Absolutely.
I think it's good information.
Thank you.
Well, before all of this COVID stuff went crazy, obviously we get requests from the departments, then I kind of go through them and I try to cut back on certain expenses, but not being an employee of the department, I don't want to cut anything that is contracted or something that, is dire for their, their services. So John was just great. I kind of reached out to him, excuse me, and I said, can you sharpen your pencil? Can you just see what you can do? And he did, and he came back with, I want to say it was like maybe $7,000 worth of cuts. And that was initially, and even after the mayor and I had spoken to go through the budgets, she had told me that, the camps weren't going to be going on and, so to reach out to John and talk to him, and he I didn't even have to reach out to him. He had a conversation with her. He sent me all updated figures and he really shaved back a lot on this budget. I mean, his budget is smaller than a lot of departments that didn't want to cut a dime. So, I appreciated working with him on this because he was very in tune with what he's going to need, given that the camps aren't going to be around or aren't going to be going on, and how that affects his budget. So it was, I think it was we had a good dialogue back and forth, and, I think he cut things down to get rid of, what was going to be unnecessary based on the circumstances, but still keep things, going and, keep everything where it needs to be.
So,
Right. He wasn't happy about any of it, but
But he didn't yell at all, so that was a good thing.
Yeah.
John's a nice guy.
Yeah.
Hey, John, just curious, no camps. We anticipate probably opening the park, but the pool probably won't be open, right? Do we know any?
Yeah, the pool won't be open this year. That was part of the order, and it's late in the game
Okay.
for hiring staffing and things like that. So, we were out on this, having these discussions, the mayor, Jen, myself, the Board of Health, early April, to kind of put worst case scenarios together. And so this was not a surprise for our department. We understand a lot of our resources are based around the summer season, and we're not going to have the same type of summer season we've had in the past. So we cut where we definitely needed to. And then with the anticipation of leaving some funds available to get us going for next year, to start us off in June like we normally do and get us going. So, it's unfortunate, but this is the world we're in. This is what we're dealing with. And, we needed to step up and help out where we can. And so that's where we're at with our budget. I did reach out to my commission members and, because there's been some headlines, parks getting creamed here and stuff, and let them know that I was a full participant in these discussions. And so I was fully aware of what was coming, and I've talked with my staff as well months ago that they're going to hear about cuts in our department, but it's not dire. It's we're doing what we can and save jobs and still provide services. They may be limited for this summer, but still be able to provide services once we open.
Okay. That's why does any of the counselors have anything on what John said or the narrative before I move on to line items?
No, the only comment I will make, John, is first, thank you for being so thoughtful about preparing this particular portion of the budget. And I will also say that, you know, I know there's a lot of conversation out there in the greater Easthampton world. You know, none of these cuts or none of this budget is personal. This is a new event that it's a 100-year event. So everything that we're doing, I think, is for the greater good of the city and to keep us as productive and viable as we go forward. So I hope that people are not casting any aspersions on you, John, because these are the kinds of decisions that have to be made, and they're not popular. But you know, what are we going to do? This is a 100-year event, and we have to be thoughtful and be prepared for the coming months and, quite frankly, years of cutting back. So good for you for getting ahead of the curve and being so participatory. So thank you.
Well, and I'm also glad, John, that you reached out and to Jen before because you knew you were going to you had ways of cutting because you knew what was going to happen. And that's why I have temp positions highlighted here. Obviously, that's the biggest cut right there. I have nothing else on the recreation budget other than the park isn't closed, but all the camps and the pool and everywhere you need temp positions, that's why that's down, correct?
Yeah.
If you open the park, will you have the gate manager there? Is that a temp position? Just curious.
That's in the 6,500 budget, not in the rec one.
Okay. Do you have
So these temp positions are mainly revolving around pool, spray park, you know, those areas.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions, Councilors Lynch and Coniff, on recreation budget?
Yeah, the only thing I had on the 3 lines at the last one, it looks like they're flipped around. I don't know if...
there's misplaced.
Okay, so then I guess that would answer all of the questions there. Except for what's longevity for recreation? So we've never budgeted for that in the past. It's always been under the park side, which I see it's there as well. So just I'm assuming that that's supposed to be $100.
Yes,
there.
it's 100.
Yeah. What that falls under, what that is now.
That means I've been around a long time. I'm in my 11th year, and you start earning longevity after 10 years.
See, we give you a lot of money for that. That's good. Anything else, Bill?
No, that's okay. No.
Any other counselors?
Don't see anything.
Moving on to Park Department, and you've already made the same statements here. George is there. You have the same cast of characters here.
Yes.
Working in positions, and they're not furloughed or anything. We're able to keep them.
Yeah, so I can talk to that when we get to the line item section.
Okay, well, I'm trying to get there. Does anybody have anything on the park narrative that they want to ask before I go to line?
No.
Okay. Line items, salaries, temp positions is cut back, but you still have some temp positions. Could you explain that to me? And also you could go into...
Yeah, so I'll give you the full rundown here. The salaries, the top 2 salaries, the 5111 are George and Dan, so that'd be our park foreman and assistant foreman, for lack of a better term to describe Dan. And then you get into your temp positions, and that's where we're at. Seasonal workers, park maintenance seasonal workers. So I have 2 39-week positions that are in that budget, but then also 2 30-week and change positions that fall into that for park maintenance. They deal with a lot of the weekend stuff. They do a lot of weekend hours. I eliminated one of those positions with the pool being closed, and pavilion rentals are going to be down this year. We're already seeing a lot of cancellations. I eliminated a a position for this season coming up. And then I've also looked at toll booth hours would be a little less, and security. We're not having Arts in the Park. You know, there's other events where our park security have to work. I'm looking at you know, a lot of hours saving there, and then shortening their hours when we do open up. I'm not sure if I'm going to need them, you know, coming in at 11 and working till, well, closed will always be there closed, but coming in earlier, putting extra shifts around the pool area on weekends and busy times. So, you know, there was an opportunity to reduce some hours there. So I was able to, you know, trim about almost 11,000 off of salaries based on anticipating a quieter season in the park this summer.
I have no other questions. Councilor Coniff?
John, for that 91,000 in temp positions, how many are there? Does that account for?
So that accounts for one, two, three. Well, normally it would account for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that would normally account for 10 positions.
But you're going to go with 9 this summer?
Well, yeah, and you know that would be that includes 2 toll booth workers, 4 or 5 security, so that kind of fluctuates. But so the main piece of that would be the 2 39-week, 40-hour-a-week park maintenance position and the 30-hour-a-week park maintenance position. And then other than that, it's positions that work anywhere between 5 and 8 hours a week. So anywhere between 9 and 12 employees could be in that line item.
Okay. Do you anticipate an opportunity here for that for that number to not hit the 91,000 mark? And what I'm asking is, I know we don't know what we don't know. And so we don't know how the summer is going to go. And if there are fewer events, although the flip side to that is once we all get the okay to leave our homes, there could be a flood of personnel going into the park.
Yes.
If there isn't already. But what I'm just suggesting is, if all other things being equal, if all the programs could go down, if you need less security, if you need fewer things going on, do you anticipate that the people that you have budgeted right now, that it is likely or unlikely that you perhaps don't need all of them at this point? And is there, and this is a horrible thing to ask, but if you find that as the summer's going or as the season is going, that things are not panning out as we had hoped, is there a contingency plan for that line item to either not hire temp people or to reduce temp people even further?
Possibly on the toll booth and security side, there's a possibility of that. But I met with my park maintenance staff. Well, I've met with them a lot, but probably a month ago, and talked about the potential opportunity that we will have in these weeks and months where we're shut down. You know, the theme is, you know, you have everybody on every ball field, everybody in the park, every minute of every day in the summertime. So, you know, doing the air rating, doing those extra things, doing the maintenance, doing some things that can't get done because it's always so busy and they're doing other things. I discussed that we have to take advantage of this opportunity and get out there and do those things that normally can't get done. I mean, talk about overseeing and aerating ball fields this time of year. It would be impossible. I mean, they're out there, softball's out there every day, Little League's out there, everybody's out there, you know, just they're going strong. So So no, I'm comfortable with, at least on the maintenance end, to make sure that they're performing their task and doing the things that we haven't been able to do for these types of months that we have in front of us. So no, maybe some security hours, there might be some give back on stuff like that. And if there is, I'm not going to schedule them just for the sake of schedule them. If you look at my budget, historical budget data, is I pretty much level fund and don't stray too far from where we need to be. So, we'll look at that. And if there's a place where they're not needed, then I'm not going to have them in here, and we'd be able to save a few additional dollars on that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Is that it? Councilor Lynch?
No, I'm good. I had some questions around the temp positions too, but I think John kind of answered it and outlined it, and you can really see you crunched your numbers here, man. So, all right, thanks.
Nicole, I saw you.
Counselor,
Nicole had her hand up. I don't know if she changed her
I
mind.
can wait for the other counselors. I'm fine.
Okay.
all done.
I mean, I do have something to say, but I cede to other counselors.
Any
Well, I
other?
just wanted to step in and say that I think Councilor Coniff did a great job with asking the questions. And I think John did a great job in answering them. So thank you very much.
Anybody else? So Nicole, go for it.
Okay. Yeah, so it seems like a backhanded compliment, certainly to the Parks Commission and to John, for just the efficiency with his budget. I would say around the temp positions, I would say, Jen, let me go back. I don't see, short of a vaccine, lifting an order that opens parks or pools until at least September 1. We couldn't do it in good conscience. The public health metrics, and I can talk about this another time, but I just want to be clear around parks. It's not going to happen this summer and maybe into the fall. And all big events have been canceled across the board. That said, there is a unique opportunity, and I know John and his crew will take full advantage of doing some maintenance projects and rebuilding of small things that will enhance the park experience once we do reopen. And as to security or toll booth hours, I would humbly suggest to John, but also to the council, that John will need those hours. Because remember, the park is open for people to walk in, but all of the safety precautions are still in place. And enforcement, kind enforcement with reminders, clearly will fall on park security, as well as the Board of Health and the police department. And so those hours around security, or what would be spent in a toll booth, my guess is we're gonna see a different use of those positions. Sure, money back is great, for an overall budget, I suppose, but we need to look how to best use those dollars and look at the new circumstances, and where those dollars unfortunately will be used.
So when you say the park is going to be closed, you mean the gates are closed and there's no vehicular traffic when you say that?
People can walk around them.
I know, but I'm just curious about.
Yeah,
you don't
the
need
gates
toll
aren't, the gates aren't opening.
Okay, that's different. Okay.
And playgrounds are still closed.
All right.
Nobody's playing on the fields. So, I just want to be clear, and there's unfortunate but great, maintenance that can happen in our parks. And let's not forget, it's just not Nantucket Park. John has more than enough park property to figure out how to take care of. So, but I also anticipate, we'll just need security for different reasons.
And I also want to say that in all these budgets, if there is a guess as to what we need in a lot of places, it's an educated guess. But if we didn't need as much money, it becomes free cash. And that free cash may be needed next year as well to supplement budgets that where revenue has fallen short. So, and that's 2022, for instance. That's my thinking anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all of that. I think one of the things that, you know, I'm going to be looking for as we continue to have these meetings are exactly what John has done, which is the proactive, I get it, I'm not going to be able to have all this money, here's how I'm cutting it, because, you know, whatever we put together for this budget and whatever we think is going to happen, something different is going to happen. And so all we can do is plan, but my hope is that the department heads will err on the side of this is going to go on for another year or two or three, and that at the end of this fiscal year, we're going to be having the same conversation. It may even be more difficult next year, and that any opportunity for us to not spend money should be rejoiced and celebrated. And I just think it's going to be tough, and we just need to really be careful with how we're spending our money.
May I comment, Chairman Russ?
Yes.
I agree wholeheartedly with President Conniff. I would also remind folks that there is something exceptional. There are a lot of exceptional things about Park and Rec, John, right? Not just some things, everything, especially costumes and decorations, best ever. But that said, John did sharpen his pencil and did it proactively. I also canceled summer because of the pandemic. So there are a lot of things that are happening in John's budget because summer's canceled. That said, he still cut. What you'll see in other budgets, and I know we'll talk further about this, while the object here is to preserve cash, we don't want to treat this idea that it all sweeps to free cash like a tax return, right? So when you get a big tax return, everybody's like, yippee, free. Well, actually, it means you haven't budgeted well and you've let the US government have a lot of your money and they get the interest until you file paperwork to get your money back. So each department budget, while there might be an increase in a section or a decrease in the other, there is money in the budget, especially for our DPW and having pipes on hand while we know the prices now and as soon as possible, rather than wait until things explode, and be prepared to do that and not bare bone everything. We don't want to spite. We know it's catastrophic, but we need some funds to beat the mitigate pandemic. I'll just say that. And we also need money to get ready to rebound. We don't have a plump roster of employees anywhere in our city. And as much as especially 50 Payson and DPW really is doing a lot of proactive maintenance, they're also living through what we're living through right now in staggered shifts. And all of the work that they are doing across the departments, especially right now, 50 Payson, they're working more than their hours, not only so we can rebound, but that we can tread water now. And I know we'll go through this more in the departments, but yeah, there are departments that end up with more money, proportionately by percents that drive me crazy, because 2% in the auditor's department is not 2% in the school budget or DPW or parks. And we have to look at amounts. But the total increase of this budget is 1.09%. And there is definitely room in this budget for our departments to be able to respond effectively and timely rather than reactively. And I did not push every single penny I could into a stabilization account or wait for free cash, because we're going to have to move as quickly and efficiently as we can during this fiscal year. And that said, we cannot wait until the end of 2021 to revisit our budget. That has to happen in the fall. And that's one of the reasons the reports that Val and Jen provide us are so important to look at every single month. And in the fall, there will be a serious review. And I would ask the chair in advance to schedule department and budget section hearings just like this once we do have an understanding of what free cash looks like, and we go line by line with this council for the public to look at where our budget is and look at where revenues and reimbursement.
As the chief appropriating authority, Mayor, you'll have to take the lead on that and just let us know.
Absolutely. Yes.
So we're done for tonight. I have on Thursday, public safety, human services, and unclassified insurances. Human services, that's our new personnel director. Can
Yes.
you talk to him to be there
Yes.
that week?
You gonna get a hold of the library?
I will. We'll add the library under new business. We also
Okay.
have the 42,000 for dispatch and the 200 for Barbara.
Yes.
So does anybody have anything else? Otherwise, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn. Roll call vote. Peg,
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Dan, yes. Thank you all. And Peg, I assume you'll deal with the video.
Stay safe, stay home.
Stay safe.